What's going on, everybody? And in this video, I'm going to share my experience when I went to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I can tell you, I enjoyed it there. And it's one of those museums that just going one time isn't enough because there's that much stuff in there. Mind you, this is a museum that got over 37,000 artifacts donated to it, but they only had about 3,000 or maybe a little over that actually on display. I mean, it's that big. Now, when we first got there, as you can see, this was a pretty weird design, but after I found out what the inspiration for the design of the museum was, it made a lot more sense, and I'll share that shortly. When we got inside, it wasn't a whole lot of people in there until we got downstairs and saw that line. Because the way that the museum is designed for you to start in the bottom, because I think it's like 3 levels underground, like in the basement, and then you work your way up. And that explained a lot, because when I was seeing pictures of people who did go, the opening day, that they shared more pictures that were upstairs than pictures that were downstairs in the basement, where the bulk of where all of the artifacts are. But I like the fact that they set it up that way. So when me and my family first get downstairs in the basement, they opened up by talking about how there was a sunken ship where they found a lot of African artifacts on, and it looked pretty good. But of course, I kind of like pressed my way through to just start seeing all of the other things that the museum had to offer. And I'll admit, it was one of those things I said to myself, I'll come back to see these on the second time, especially when the hype of the museum starts to die down a little bit. But going through and just seeing the different things that they had on the ground floor, just seeing a lot of things that our ancestors dealt with, dealing with slavery when we first got here, a lot of the discrimination and things that they just endured. It's like, man, seeing how you had people try to revolt or try to, just make a change. And one thing that blew my mind, just going down on the first floor, they shared different information about how the slaves were responsible for building the Capitol. And I know that should be common knowledge, but like I said, this museum was good because, for me personally, I know I'm kind of getting all sidetracked of what I'm talking about, but I think this museum was good because for anybody who doesn't care to know, this is a foundational point for some. For others, they might be able to educate people while they're in there. So I mean, it's good to have, because this is the place to get a conversation started. Just like for me to see certain things, like one of the lashes or whips that was used to beat slaves, to get to see the cotton gin. I also got to see the rock that, for those who watched the opening day that President Obama spoke about, got to see that. I also got to see Nat Turner's Bible. One other thing that I learned just on this first floor of the museum is how in Maryland, the very state I reside in, that blacks couldn't get married. That's something I can admit I didn't know about, but by finding out about that there, it made me look into it a little bit more. The other thing that you end up seeing down there is just the prices that they had for men, women, and children, and just a lot of artifacts that it puts it in your face. It's one thing to just read it and hear about it and have it in your mind, but to see some of this stuff in your face. Then after the first floor, you move up and you see the next level of change, where they talked about the impacts of segregation and the things that many of our ancestors had to deal with. And two things on that specific floor that I paid more attention to than anything else that was on that floor was how they talked about the stereotypes and just how they just pushed out a certain image of us. And it blows my mind because it's still going on today, and it's still effective today for many people in America, where they have a certain perception of us. And unfortunately, some of us have kind of gotten caught into it, where we kind of help the stereotype along. Even though that stereotype isn't the majority, it still blows my mind it was in there. You also got to see pictures just of, it was a list they had. I don't think I took a video of it, but it was a list they had of each state and the laws and rules and regulations of just of what we can do in transit. So, on trains, buses, where we're allowed to sit, and they had a train in there. It's not even finished yet. They didn't get the seats in there yet, but just so many things they had in there. Another thing I couldn't record is they had Emmett Till's casket in there, but they asked us not to take any pictures or videos of it. And to see in the casket, you had to stand your tippy toes, but what they did is they had the picture that Jet Magazine took of Emmett Till's face, because for many of you all know, Emmett Till's mom wanted to have an open casket just so people could see just how brutally he was beaten. And I mean, man, that's something else. Going along, I got to see different things, Rosa Parks' dress. Now, in that section, I wanted to spend more time in there, but at the same time, I was trying to catch up with my family, so I didn't spend as much time in that section as I wanted to. And it's somewhere I kind of put a mental map to say, say, when I go back to that museum, I'm going to spend more time in that section just to see the many different things in there. It was confirmation of a lot of things that I heard. And of course, there are going to be certain things that you don't see in there that you may know about. But the fact that this just could push you or compel you to want to look a little bit more. Then you move up to the next level and it starts talking about Black Power. Just a lot of things of how we starting to have more effect on pop culture. We were starting to get a little bit more freedom. Just how we were starting to move in different types of neighborhoods. And then it's slowly just going up the timeline. So then finally you make your way out of the basement and then you work your way upstairs. And then when you get upstairs, you see more modern things. And see this second floor. This floor wasn't open at the time when my wife went. So it was some things I got to see that she didn't get to see because she went on opening day. As you move further and further up, you see it gets more and more modern, and you also get to see how they show our impact when it comes to different things as far as in the school system, as far as innovations when it comes to the medical field, when it comes to engineering, you know, seeing how we started dominating and growing in sports. I mean, it was just so much. And then you finally get to the top floor. And at the top floor with this here, this sculpture here is the inspiration for the design of the building. And when I seen that, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. But I noticed when I watched a lot of people's videos, especially for people who went on open day, this is the floor you saw the majority of. And everybody kept on talking about this daggone red Cadillac right here and thinking that this was the bulk of the museum was. About time we got to this floor, it was close to 5 o'clock and we were done. It's just like, man, because it's just so much in the museum. But at this particular floor, this is where you see our impact in pop culture and especially in music. And seeing this thing here and seeing in one of the staples of the music staples of the DMV to see what Chuck Brown created with go-go music. So I mean, there's a lot. It's too much for me to talk about in this video. I just wanted to share little clips here and there so you can get a taste of it. But like I said, if you have an opportunity to go to this museum, go to this museum. Do not rely on pictures, like I said, that you see on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Don't rely on just this video here. If you have an opportunity to go, go. Because the way that people work and the way that their minds work is that there's going to be something there that intrigues you that doesn't intrigue someone else or doesn't intrigue them as much. So for example, I know that some people may have want to hear more about or see more about the Talented 10th or how the NAACP was started or seeing how slaves lived in the past or wanted to see how we overcame during the terms of segregation. I mean, just so many things in that museum, and to think that they're not even finished. It just blows my mind. Like I said, I'm definitely, if I have the opportunity, I'm definitely going back, and especially living in the DMV or living in Maryland, the nation's capital, and the museums are maybe like 45 minutes. It's just a train ride away from me. I'm definitely gonna go back, and I can't stress enough, if you have the opportunity to go, do not rely on this video alone. And that's it. There's probably a lot more I could have shared, but to not make this video tremendously long, I try to cut it down as much as possible. But for those of you all who sat through to the end, I appreciate it. And as always, be wise. And until I see you guys next time, have a great day.